This interview is brought to you by Comcast Government Services. Find out how Comcast Government Services is providing solutions to the federal government that enable mission-critical network transformation designed to scale with evolving needs. Visit comcastbusiness.com/fedgov to learn more.
Hi, I'm Jordan McDonald with GovCIO Media and Research. Today, I'm joined by Mark Gorak, Principal Director, Resources Analysis at the DoD CIO Office. Mark, it's been a year since the beginning of the Cyber Workforce Implementation Plan. Is designed to fill roles. I think last year you said about 30,000. Could you just tell us a year on how we're looking into the workforce plan? How's it going?
Great. So Jordan, thanks a lot for inviting me to the interview. I really appreciate GovCIO and all of your viewers for listening to me today. So the implementation plan actually started with the strategy. We released the strategy last February. The strategy has four main objectives: identification of the workforce, recruitment, retention, and development. The implementation plan, then, we came up with 38 initiatives to actually execute that. And we measure those based on those four pillars. So the first one is actually the hardest one. It's identification. So part of identification is we've totally innovated in having what we call work roles. So instead of looking at occupational series or, MOSs or anything like that, we look at what you actually do. What is your job? And we have 72 different work roles. The hard part is, how do you get the whole entire department, 165 civilians and military, another 80,000 or so contractors, all on the same page for the work roles, and how do you code that? So that's the first challenge. We've been at that for about 3 years now. So we're about an 85% solution, but it never ends because positions change, technology changes, work roles change, and how do you keep up with the coding? So that's the first challenge, I would say, in identification. But I always tell my seniors is, how good do you need the data in order to make decisions? We're never going to get to 100%. But I think we're to a place at 85% that we can make decisions. So the next is, how do we influence recruiting and retention? So we were about 30,000 short last year. This year, we're at 27,000. Still short, huge numbers, but we're getting better. And we see small improvements every quarter, which means something we're doing is working. It's hard to pinpoint exactly what that is.
Mark, a slow start is still a start. Could you sort of clue us into some of the improvements that you've made since the implementation plan was enacted?
Yes. So the two big improvements I think we've made is one in the identification of the workforce and the coding effort we have throughout the department. It's a huge challenge to try to get every single cyber professional coded correctly. That's in each of the 72 work roles, make sure they're coded. And then the proficiency levels of that is where we're going to next. So not only do I have to know that you're a exploitation analyst, but what level of proficiency are you in that work role? So we're working on getting that coding done. The second thing I think that is a major improvement is our engagement. We have an outreach and engagement effort. So we've been working with the Hill, and the Hill has been extremely responsive to us on expanding cyber acceptance service, on creating the Cyber Academic Engagement Office, which is our outreach to academia, which I was just appointed last week as the director of that office. So that will help us reach out to all K through 12, as well as research money, as well as scholarships. And the Congress wanted one talk that they could go to within the department to let them know, how many scholarships do we give out? What's our ROI on that? How many research grants are we getting out? What capabilities is all that research money delivering for the department? So that's kind of my charter. Just started it last week. I've been appointed. And in the next year or so, you can talk to me next year and we'll figure out where we are with that initiative. But that's still a success or implementation plan in our outreach with the Hill.
Absolutely. You mentioned one of the pillars is identification. We're talking about, 27,000 jobs at this point. Could you sort of help me understand what types of jobs you're looking for, as well as the sort of jobs that you've already found?
So again, I go back to the work roles. Most of our workforce is coded under the 2210 occupational series. But within that occupational series alone, we have all 72 work roles. So we care about what the workforce is doing. So most of our top shortages are all in our very technical front edge areas. So we're not short policymakers today. Okay, I am very short exploitation analysts. Okay, so the more technical the position we found, the more short we have. And there's high competition for that across the entire nation. And I think that's another area where GOG really helps out. I'm short 27,000. I have 165,000 total civilians and contractors, but our turnover is 10,000 cyber professionals a year that we give back to the nation. We give back to businesses, corporations, back to the federal government to go work. So I think that's one of the strengths of DoD is we provide the training, we provide the experience, and then we have that turnover that goes back and serves the nation to get after the nation's shortage of cyber.
Absolutely. I guess could you sort of help me understand why this hiring is so critical to the DoD cyber mission as a whole?
Well, again, this goes back to workforce. If you're only operating at 70% of your strength, you are not fulfilling your full mission. And then our workforce becomes overworked, overburdened, and we don't execute as proficiently as we would like. So I think our goal is above 90% across the board, which is a pretty good goal to get to if we're at 75% now. So it's a matter of, can we do the mission? Because our adversaries have a vote here. We are constantly fighting with our adversaries. They're constantly improving and advancing. We have to keep up. It's a national challenge that we have to fulfill.
Absolutely. And so, we've talked about this last year. We're talking about it this year. What can we expect for the future in, let's say, 2025 and going into 2026 even?
So again, our goal is to reduce the vacancy rate by 2% per year. So by 2027, we'll be about 90% across the board. So we are on track to achieve that. We've already reduced it, 1.5% this last year. So we're totally on track to reduce the vacancy rate. But it's more than that, because not only do you have to reduce the vacancy rate, you have to make sure they're all qualified, because the technology is constantly changing. So it's also the development pillar that we're after. As the technology changes, how fast can we respond to that and get it into our systems, we get it into our work roles, and then promulgate that through the training pipeline? There's a huge delay for that. Even in universities, I go to universities and ask them to change their curriculum. They tell me, yeah, we'll get to that in a year and a half. So they have to change the curriculum, they have to get it approved, accredited, and then they have to get the instructors to actually teach it. So there's a huge leg to this. That leg today is too long. We have to reduce that because the cyber technology is changing about every 8 to 12 months. So that's another thing that we're going after. And I'm hoping next year to be able to report that we've done better there and that we've reduced the vacancy rate.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Mark, and looking forward to seeing what happens in 2025.
Great. Thank you very much, Jordan.
This interview is also brought to you by Fortinet Federal. How can your agency improve network visibility, control, and cyber defense? With advanced technology and expert support from Fortinet Federal. Advance your mission with modern, trusted networks that connect data centers, clouds, and remote users. For more, see FortinetFederal.com.